Good evening, everyone. It's been a long time. I have found two very important articles, PDFs, on the R branch of the Turkic language. First, I'd like to share the views of these studies, the Chuvash studies, and the Proto-Bulgarian, which is Chuvash here. I'd like to comment on the vocabulary and compare it with today's Turkish. And in the end, or maybe sometimes in the middle of the presentation, I'd like to share my views and draw my conclusions. Most probably I will also end with my own views on the article. And as I said, I will draw my own conclusions and make my own conclusion on it. Most probably it could be also a hypothesis. Yes, so this was written by Boris Simeonov, and he talks about the problem of Proto-Bulgarian, which are the elements in Hungarian. So, some parts I'm going to read, so this is going to be a long lecture. It says here, intensive research in the field of Bulgar, Hunnic, and Turkish studies has been carried out in the People's Republic of Hungary. By the university and Hungarian scholars. They studied the Proto-Hungarian and the Proto-Bulgar language and the branch. And then it says, in researching the field of Bulgar, Hunnic, and Turkish languages, Hungarian scholars have sought the solution of problems in the light of their scholarly interests. Maybe I can solve some of these problems because I know Turkish, and I can make out the changes from the R branch into the Z branch, because I know the Z form of Turkish, and because Old Bulgar and Chuvash, as well as Hungarian, have the R vocabulary, the R branch in their language, that could give the opportunity to solve some of these problems. Let's see. It says here, the scholars, they try to discover new facts and links with the ancient homeland of the Hungarian tribes of the Middle Volga. So the ancient Hungarian tribes are the Chuvash tribes. That means the Turks in the Volga region. The old Bulgars are the Chuvash, the Turks. They have centered their research on historic ties existing between their people and language, and those of old Chuvashia. That means the Turks living in the Volga region, who founded old Bulgaria before the Bulgars became Slavs. And it says here, old Bulgars were a branch and a successor to the name and population of Khan Kubrat. So Khan Kubrat's Great Bulgaria. That is why we are going to approach the ties from the vantage point of Proto-Bulgarian ethnology and language. So there are some comparisons made from the Bulgar language, from the Chuvash language, and the Hungarian language, and I will add the Turkish to this. So let's see what kind of work comes out. I'm very, very curious and, of course, excited. Thus, a number of problems posed and interpreted by Hungarian scholars from their point of view would be explained by us. So, what kind of problems? We will see. First, Hungarian scholars seem to have accepted the traditional application of terms and have subsumed all the tribes and the languages they brought to Eastern and Central Europe from Central Asia under the heading of Turkish. Well, it is the same with German. I mean, you call it German, but when you call it Turkish, there is a problem. So why is there no problem when you call it German? I mean, when you call it Turkish, you always think of Anatolian Turkish, but actually, when you say Austrian German or Swiss German, you think of Swiss German, but not Germany's German. Why this difference? I mean, there shouldn't be the same logic. I mean, there should be the logic like in German. Did I make myself clear? So if you say Turkish, all the Turkic languages should be thought of. So thus they have placed Proto-Bulgarians with Turkish peoples. It is already been, I mean, when it comes to the Turks, they study them and they study them until the very detail. But when it comes to the Indo-European languages or the Indo-European so-called tribes, they don't follow the same way, they don't follow the same path. So they brought to light that the Bulgars and the Turks were two independent constituents of the House of Huns. What is more, the Bulgars were singled out as more prominent in the imperial alliance of the Huns than the Turks. So the Bulgars are something like the equivalents of the Huns. So when we say Bulgar or Old Bulgar, it meant the Huns, most probably the European Huns. So that means they could be the Chuvash, the old Chuvash. What is more, being the nucleus of the front western branch of the Huns. So the Bulgars had never been dominant by the Turks. Actually, when you say Turks, you think of somebody else. That's the problem of the Westerners. When you say Bulgar, they think of somebody else, and when they say Turk, they think of somebody else. When they say Turk, they always think of East Asia, Mongolia, etc. But when they think of Bulgar, they always think of Europe. They always think of Russia. So it is the mindset that is the problem, for sure. Both the Bulgars and the Turks were peoples belonging to the union of the Huns without the Turks even being Bulgars and vice versa. Well, if those two tribes belonged to the Huns, they were interconnected. I mean, the Bulgars were Tatars and the Turks were Tatars. You cannot distinguish them from one another. Calling all who know Altay peoples Turkish is historically incorrect. The problem here is that when you say Turkish, you always think of the East Asian people, as I said, or you think of Mongolians, or you think of Mongoloid people. That's the problem with the West. It seems helpful to remind that the term Turkish or you think of Anatolia as Turkish. It seems helpful to remind that the term Turkish was of later origin and its meaning was rather arbitrarily expanded. The postface explains that the anthology contains the papers presented at the symposium held in Eger, Hungary. The better part of volume is dedicated to linguistic studies. There's a number of papers and scholars. The anthology opens with blah, blah, blah, in which the reviews Chuvash studies publications in Hungary and the USSR. So Hungary and the USSR studied on Chuvash. Okay, let's see what they found out. The author has also made a number of observations, conclusions. For the phonemic structure, which is important, of some Chuvash and Hungarian words. The suggestions are well supported by fact, yet there's some consideration. Let's see. Wait a minute. Okay, it goes on here. Thus, for example, the author's treatment of the older Chuvash form of the word aluk, which is door. We now say kapı. I'm thinking of a similar word to aluk or alak. And the newer form of alum, which is not regarded as parallel and the derivative of the older aluk, is not convincing. The phonological alteration of k at the end of words into t. So it means alut, I think. K at the end. It's possible the form alut is by no means an erroneous spelling, but rather one to be expected. The Bulgar form, Hauduk. God, I wish I was able to read this Cyrillic alphabet. Haudumut. Next comes Catherine Segeret's paper contribution to the micro-toponymy of the Chuvash Republic. The author has studied place names in Chuvashia and has suggested interpretations of some of them from the point of view of etymology. The regular part is complex microtonyms in Chuvashia as Kasi, village, new village. We say köy in Turkish. According to Egorov, it is of Old Bulgar Chuvash origin and takes part in the names such as Yukas, Anamkas. We say köy. So köy and kas are the same then, because when we add, say for example, Polines köy or blah blah blah köy, we always add them at the end of the stem word. Okay, Yukas, Anash, etc. The word can be found in the Bulgarian place name Kastuchan from an older Kasnichen. Oh God. Skennedy has pointed out that this content derives from words denoting family relations, often can be found in the structure of place names, like in Chuvashia, such as Ar means man. Now, this brings me to the idea, when you say Ar, if it's man, I once made a presentation of all the Turkic tribes which I found, say for example, Bulgar, Avar, Magyar, and if you add R to the stem word, if the meaning is man, that's definitely a Turkish name added to the stem word. We don't have it anymore, but this must have been the most ancient form. Anne, mother, ama, woman, mother. Okay, we now have, I'm not sure if this is ata or ama. We say ana for mother, especially in the Taurus Mountains. They call mother Ana. And Apa is grandmother. So Apa, actually Aba means sister, older sister in Turkish now. I'm so sorry. So grandmother means now nene, or you say babaanne or anneanne. Acha, I think, child. So cha, the ch is definitely a common form for Indo-European and both Turkish, which is çocuk, and child with the ch, and pache, piche, elder brother. Actually, it is aga in Turkish, but not any brother. Kin, from kilen. Okay, kilen is gelin. Now we say gelin, but I think the original form was with k, kilin, daughter-in-law. And I once heard that the name Helene or Helen derived from kilin. The Greeks took it from Anatolian Turkish. So the daughter-in-law from the older Kilin. So if it's Bulgar, I'm sure that the Bulgars also lived in Anatolia. Which were then Turks. Aka, sister, elder sister. Bulgar kaka, etc. A number of examples, place names mentioned common constitutions such as Apa, Apankasi, Ana, Vare, Amanik, Apash, Apakasi, Shene, Acha, Peches, Kasi, the elder brother's village. Oh God, it's very, very different from today's vocabulary. We have kincher, kachu, pussy, the son-in-law's field, akas, vare, sister's ditch, teten, kasti, brother's garden, karti. Okay, but not the eldest brother garden, more precisely, but uncle's father's husband's man, tetin. Okay. And then it goes on. It says, this word cannot be found in other Slavic languages. The word kaka is a Proto-Bulgarian kaka word. Okay. It seems to me that if you analyze these words, the people that came up with the names Minoan or Hittites or blah blah blah for Anatolia, I think the original homeland of the old Bulgars was then Anatolia. Why not? Because the places that are described are Italy, Anatolia, and when you compare them, they describe also the vocabulary that was present in Anatolia at that time. Think, for example, okay, I'm coming back to that later. The husband's sister, wait a minute. I'm curious if this is Kaka, is a Proto-Bulgarian, Kalina. Okay, so Kalina, Vasha, Pasha, Chicho, Kalina, Kaka. Anyway, it means something related to the family, the husband of the father's sister. Okay. The ethnic name Tatar appears in Chuvash place names as Tutar. So that's very interesting. Tutar Kasi. Man Tutarkas. Big Tatar village. So Kas is Köy. And Tatar is Tutar. Tutar, okay, Tatar George. Tutarkas Virmane, the forest of the Tatar village. etc. This peculiar pronunciation was left without comment, blah, blah, blah. The form like Tatarni Vari, Tatar George, is of recent origin. The forms of Tutar, however, are derivatives of Totar, which on its part comes from Tatar through a labelization of A into O. Okay? And then through reduction of O to U. Okay, so Tatar became Totar and then Tutar, and obviously belonged to an earlier period. Could be. The labelization of R to O is generally typical of Bulgar Hunnic languages. Okay, so first R, then O. Okay, this is an important fact to be reminded because toponyms like Turhan, Tarhan is the same. Okay, when you have Turhan and Tarhan, or when you have Turkan and Tarkan, this means it has definitely something to do with the Turks and with Turkish and with the Turks in Anatolia and with the Mediterranean. And also it has something to do with Italy, with the Etruscans. They are related by the author only in Hungarian names of the type Tarkani. So, and are also left without explanation. I mean, I can explain it. Tarkani, Turkani, they are cities in Italy, Sicily, whatever, and there were the Etruscans. So if you consider Etrarch, Tar, that means the same word for the Etruscans if you Yes, if you put the same rule to the Etruscans, that means they were also Tatars. Still, references are made to the Golden Horde, an ethnic and social group which belongs to a later historical period, when AO labelization and QH Auslaut are already impossible. In Proto-Bulgarian, the word and title Tarkan appears fairly often. So if Proto-Bulgarian has the word Tarkan, it is definitely Proto-Turkic, because Tarkan is considered holy, is considered noble, and it's considered heroic in Turkish and among the Turks. So if this is true, then definitely the Bulgars don't know their own roots. They are assimilated, very sadly, and that means that we came from the west, that we came from the north. The author of these lines has suggested, to Anatolia, the author of these lines has suggested that it has the professional meaning of master. So Tatar or Tarkan means master. That comes to prove that place names like Turhan, Turhan, Tarhan. We also have these names, Tarkan, and if you consider Turk, that means also master. So being Turk means master, then. You solve the problem, actually. I can solve it by comparing it with Turkish. That comes to prove that place names, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, more than 7 in number in Chuvashia, belong to an earlier Chuvash Bulgar period when the change Tarkan became Turkan. Torhan or Turhan was still quiet. We also have Turkan, which is a female name, right? Only by taking the names and only by taking the vocabulary and the language, I can solve the problems. So, it was still quite possible and date back to the pro-Golden Horde times. That is to say that Hungarian, Tarkani, is a Proto-Bulgarianism and comes from the language of the Danube and not the Volga Bulgars. So, whatever. It can come from the Danube or the Volga. It can come from the Bulgars or the Hungarians. That means it comes from the Turks. So the old scholars are right when they say that the Bulgars and the Hungarians were Turks. They were right. Check out Osman Karatay and his video. I'm going to post it as a link so that you can watch it. Watch it with subtitles, with dubbed subtitles, with voiced subtitles. There he explains why the Hungarians were called Turks by the Byzantines. So the old scholars called the Hungarians Turks. Well, we didn't find it, or we didn't invent it. It was already given before us. So, further study of Magyar, Bulgar, Turkish contexts examines the archaeological data connected with the Volga and Don Bulgars, but unfortunately neglects the Danube Bulgars, on whom much light has been shed over the last 20 years by Sankt Stanchev, Dimitrov, and other scholars. At places, the author uses linguistic data to prove his point. The ethnic name Onogur, connected with some authors with the Slav name for Hungarians, is in fact of Bulgar Hunnic origin. Well, it is of Turkish origin, because Onogur means 10, and Ogur is a tribe's name of the Ogur Turks. I think Ogur was the original form of Oğuz. So the predecessor of the Oğuz tribe. So the predecessor of the Oğuz tribe were the Huns and the Bulgars and the Hungarians before they became Oğuz. Yes, and here you can see that the Turks from the west and the R branch of Turkish was the most original form, the oldest form and the proto-form of Turkish and of today's Turkish, and of course of today's Turks. So the ethnic name Onogur, connected by some authors with the Slav name for Hungarians, is in fact of Bulgar. Okay, we said that. Well, together I explained that, where this name comes from. And together with On Ogundurs is related to a Bulgar Hunnic tribal name meaning the 10 clans, the 10 tribes. Yes, okay. Continue. From On Oğuz, from On Ogur. First it was Ogur. That's what I claim, before it became Oğuz. You see here the shift from R to Z. So if you understand this, the ones who want to understand, they can easily solve the problem. So, the latter mixing up from names was typical of that epoch. As a result of this intermingling and indirectness of sources, the southern Slavs were known as under a number of names. They were not Slavs. Slavs were the northern groups. Slavs were the Scandinavians, the white people, the Avars, the Scythians, the Huns. They were all Proto-Turks. By mixing with the white people, they became Slavs. So the Slavs are a mixture of the white people and the Turks, like, for example, the Russians, the Bulgars, and some of the other Turks that became, there are not many who became Slavs. Maybe the Balkans, I would say. Yes. So it is actually the Slavs who are a mixture of Belarusians, let's say, and the Turks. These are the Avars, the Pechenegs, for example, the Scythians, the Huns, the Hungarians. They are all Turks, actually. The Bulgars as well. Only later they became, with this mixture, they became Slavs. If they mixed, of course. Otherwise, they stayed Turks, like the Pechenegs or the Avars, the Scythians, the Huns, the Hungarians. If they didn't mix, they stayed Turks. The Chuvash, the Bashkurts, and all the other Turkish tribes. There must have always existed some reason for the transfer of names yet. The Slavs have never been either Huns or Scythians or Avars. Yes, that's what I said now. The Hungarian Historical Etymology Dictionary of Chuvash Phonology by Susan Kakuk ranks fourth in the anthology. According to the author of the paper, of the 300 Bulgar Hunnic loanwords in Hungarian do not seem to have counterparts in Chuvash. Certain general conclusions about the adaptation to the requirements of Hungarian phonetics and lexicology have also been made. Thus, for example, the long and short. The long and short irregular in Old Chuvash is said to have remained unchanged in Hungarian up to the end of its old period. A number of examples have been given to illustrate this point, yet most of them are not Old Chuvash but Old Bulgarian. Whatever. I mean, why are you dotting so much on this issue? I mean, whatever it was, Old Chuvash, Old Bulgarian, they actually were within each other. Hungarian Sator, Shator, does not derive from Old Chuvash, Chatur. Why not? It's so similar. Chatur, but from Old Bulgarian, Shatur, which has produced modern Shatra. Bator, brave, is suggested to correspond to Old Chuvash. Okay, if Bator is from Old Chuvash, I would want you to think of Ulan Bator. Where is Ulan Bator? Isn't it in Central Asia somewhere? I think in Kyrgyzstan? Or is it in Ulan Bator? Yeah, so it's a Turkish word, which we Turks have forgotten when we came to Anatolia. Yes. These are actually old Turkish words, which we never knew the meaning of. So it means brave. We have cesur in Turkish. So Bator changed to cesur. Yumuşatmışız. We made it softer. Yes? Okay, so it says here, Old Chuvash form and not to the often registered Old Bulgarian title and word of Vator. Batur became cesur. So from T to S. And from A to E. Yani A'ları eğleştiriyoruz. T'ler de S oluyor. And the rest stays the same. So the problem here is not so much that of long and short E, but that of stressed and unstressed E, which changes into O by liberalization before the stressed syllable. So cesur is a Turkish word. It is not Persian, it is not Arabic, it is definitely Turkish. Characterization is the second important feature of Old Chuvash loan words in Hungarian. First among them is bika. Okay, now look at this. Buka derived from an supposed Old Chuvash bika, bull. Now, in Turkish we have boğa. Boğa. So from k to g and then to l. Right? You see how it became softer? In Bulgarian, one does find the same word and not a supposed one in Chuvash. Modern Bulgarian, bik comes from Old Bulgarian buki, which presupposes Proto-Bulgarian buka. Proto-Bulgarian, if you say Proto-Bulgarian buka, it's boğa and not bika, buka. So, neye karşı çıkıyor bunlar? So what are you actually coming against? Or what are you against? I mean, you are not studying in a proper way because you don't know the modern Turkish, you don't know Turkish, right? That's the problem. If you knew Turkish, you would understand that the Proto-Bulgar word is actually the most original Turkic word. It is boğa, buka, Proto-Turkic. So if it's bika in Chuvash, and if it is buka in Proto-Bulgarian, the Bulgars were maybe closer to Turkish than the Chuvash. So this is the truth. I'm so sad that the world doesn't know this. And I'm so sad that your own people don't know this, because they became assimilated. They became Slavs. But you can teach this, and the ones who want to take it up, they can understand. But only the people who know Turkish, and only the people who are objective and can analyze it in an objective way without being politicized, without prejudice, they can understand the mindset and they can solve the problems. So it is not creating problems. Actually, my mindset, my view is solving the problems of the language. Because the more I study these, the more I come to understand that what you call Proto-Bulgarian is actually Proto-Turkish. And Proto-Bulgarian was actually closer to modern Turkish than Chuvash. So it has nothing to do with the leaders, that the leaders were Turkic or the leaders were Turks. No, the Bulgars themselves were Turks before some of them became Slavs. It is actually very sad what happened in the 1990s. Let's say early 1990s. Very sad. If they had only known that they were related, the Muslim Bulgars and the Christian Bulgars, the Orthodox Bulgars, they would never have let's say, created those problems in their own land. So anyway, let's turn back to the lesson. Modern Bulgarian book comes from Old Bulgarian buka, which presupposes a Proto-Bulgarian buka, we said, boğa in Turkish. So, bull, stier, in the other languages. It seems pretty certain that this word is Slav, Bulgarian, and not all. God, they are so funny. How can you say it's Slav, Bulgarian? This person definitely didn't know Turkish, because if she had known Turkish, she would definitely know that it was. She should have studied it better, in my view, right? So buka is definitely boğa, and o and u. Here comes the solving to the problem. First it becomes o, and then it turns to u or something like that. That's what she wrote. It is Old Turkish. Ortaya bu çıkıyor. Tas gibi ortada her şey. I'm sighing. The third of the defined features concerns the adaptation of Old Chuvash U, which up to the 14th century was assimilated in Hungarian as O. In this case, U became O, okay? In this case, the chosen examples are convincing, though the author itself has noted the fact that in 50% of the cases, there are no correspondence between Old Chuvash and Hungarian. Ah, come on. They said Old Chuvash has many Hungarian loan words, or Hungarian has many loan words in Old Chuvash. That's what they say. The fourth feature concerns the vowel O, which is preserved in Old and Modern Chuvash, but becomes A in Hungarian. Okay. So, for example, bur becomes bar, wine. Okay. I know we have bira, beer, which is international, and we most probably took it from beer, although it is an old Turkic word. So we called bur wine, but it became beer. Seems doubtful. The word is still in use in Bulgarian. Boran, young wine. We have a boy's name, a male name, which we call Bora. Bora. And Bora is a Turkish name, so it means young wine. Oh God. The fifth feature might be defined as overlapping of palatal E, vowel phonemes e, in borrowings, ip, open e, converted in Hungarian with short of e. According to the author, Hungarian sereg, army, corresponds to an old Chuvash cherig. Cherry, Yenicheri. So it is Yenicheri in the Ottoman times. I mean, they were called Cheri, asker. But why don't we use cherry anymore? It was an Ottoman word. So you see how it changed? The G was dropped, cherry still remained, and Yenicheri means young or new soldier in the Ottoman lexicology. We don't use it anymore. That's sad, because it's an old Chuvash word. The word, however, is recorded in the Proto-Bulgarian Hambarli inscription of Khan Krom. There, Garak, Sherek. Sherek means army. Sherek. I don't know what that means, Sherek. The Greek stands for open air, and as in the personal name, Aspar. Aspar. We have asker in Turkish. Asker means soldier in Turkish. And esteri. In this case, open air has entered Hungarian not from Chuvash, Cherik, but from Proto-Bulgarian, Shereg. Shereg, no. The sixth feature is defined as labialization of E in loanwords in Hungarian. Among the example, one finds tökör, derived from a supposed Chuvash form, tüker, tikir. So these are all actually Turkish words. This word has also old Turkish words. This word has also been recorded in Bulgarian literatures as tukra or tukra, which does not presuppose Chuvash tiker teker, but rather Old Bulgarian tuker What difference does it make? I mean, Chuvash softened it up, but Old Bulgarian had the original form. That means tuker is Old Turkish, which is closer to Hungarian tökör. Okay, so Hungarians made and ü from u, and they softened it. Yes, and also the Chuvash softened it. So Old Bulgarian has actually the most original form of the Turkish, of Old Turkish. Hungarian beljek, scar. Does not correspond to Old Chuvash, bilik. Okay, now the name bilik in Old Turkish means knowledge. We have, for example, kutatku bilik. Now we have bilgi, which means knowledge. Most probably, this word shifted into something else, but rather Old Bulgarian it says balgi. A bilgi, balgi means bilgi, knowledge. Belik, beleg. Modern Bulgarian, beleg, belege, belge maybe. There are a few cases when a loanword does correspond to a Chuvash word and still fewer when this is only the correspondence to us. The cases where the Bulgar Hunnic, i.e. the Proto-Bulgarian correspondences with borrowings of Hungarian are more adequate and of greater importance. The borrowings where in Hungarian and Bulgarian sh appears against Chuvash r and ch, okay? Instead of instead of Chuvash ui, etc. belong to the same group. It seems that the problem of Bulgarian loanwords and Hungarian should be reconsidered from a Bulgarian point of view. No, from a Turkish point of view, not Bulgarian. Because when you say Bulgarian, you understand that it's the Slavs. But you have to understand that Old Bulgarian was Old Turkic. Nicola, Proto-Bulgarian. Proto-Bulgarian borrowings are Turkish borrowings. In Hungarian, unfortunately, contains a review of Z. Gomba's works and of its latest edition in Hungarian. The second one is German, and gives only the Bulgarian point on the problem. As one might expect, M.R. Fedorov's paper gives a Chuvash one. The next paper in the anthology is by the Soviet scholar Levitskaya. It is a study on O's elements in Chuvash. After a short survey on the subject, the author has concentrated her attention on Chuvash O's isoglosses. Two of these examples are of interest to us. In Chuvash, kaga, kala or kaga, from an older gala means speak, retell, while kalash means talk. There is a Turkish tribe called Kalaj. We have konuş now in Turkish, which means talk. This word exactly corresponds to Bulgarian Galatya. Maybe Gavarit in Russian, konuş, and this word are related. Talk seriously to someone, scold. The word has other meanings too, but the existence of an exact Chuvash correspondence fosters supposition that this is a Proto-Bulgarian vestige in our language, e.g. talking not in Slavic, distinguished as in Pagan. Chuvash kuk corresponds to Bulgarian kuklicha, though the meaning is slightly different. The following paper is Americanized the Bulgar-Turkish loanwords of the Hungarian language and source of Chuvash prehistory. The author has summed up the data collected mainly by Kombors about early Bulgar elements in Hungarian, their registered phonemic structure and phonetic correspondence in modern Chuvash. If, however, one would add up to these that registered Proto-Bulgarian forms or the modern ones inherited from Proto-Bulgarian, one would have to reconsider some of the points and conclusions reached in the paper. It has already been pointed out that the adequate correspondence to Bulgarian bika, anonymously considered a Chuvashism by Hungarian scholars, comes from Bulgar bik. The bull, boa. Old Bulgar, buk, okay, from a Proto-Bulgarian buka, and that Hungarian belyet derives from Bodor. Okay, we discussed this already, that Proto-Bulgar buka is actually the old Turkish form of boa. Some other correspondence can be added to the list. We have here some other words. Keçke, Erkeç, the former name of a village called blah blah blah. Chech, Harang, Bel, which is Kazan. We have Kazan, but Kazan means something else in Turkish. Kazan is something like a metal construction, a big bowl where you could cook something or even wash yourself. And it is more precise, correlative to Bulgarian. Haranya from Proto. Bulgarian harang, buza, wheat, buğday. We have buğday in Turkish. Millet, Bulgarian, boja. It is buğday. Boza. We have boza, right? It's a drink. It's an alcoholic drink. Fermented alcoholic drink. And Turks drink it. Drink made of millet. Yeah, it is a wheat drink, right? Boza is made from wheat. So it's a kind of fermented drink made of wheat. Yeah. I never tasted it though. That's called boza. So boza is still in the original form. It hasn't changed. So drink. So I have to make a conclusion then. The words with R in the Turkic forms, they describe man, and all the tribes that end with AR are Turkish tribes or Turkic tribes. And also, if you have an O and an A in the word, it is more original than the other forms. So you have to have an O and an A. Later it changes to U and E. Sometimes it changes to E or A or U. It becomes softer. And then A changes to E, like in Alma, changes to Elma later. For Hungarian Sherek, the author has not been able to decide which the lending language was. As already mentioned, Sherek does not correspond to a supposed Chuvash Cherik, but to a Hunno-Altaic Jarak, army, a form registered in Bulgarian inscriptions, Jarak. I never heard of that. So the Hungarian word cannot be a Chuvash or Proto-Bulgarianism. I don't know what kind of connection they made here. The periodization and sources of Chuvash linguistic history by Rona Tash is definitely the most interesting study on the problem. The author has included data from old Chuvash sources only. Middle and modern Chuvash data would appear in the future paper. The suggested periodization of the historical development of Bulgar Chuvash follows the periodization of Turkish languages. Well, that's right, but you have to first learn and keep in mind that the development of the first Turkish form of the today's Turkish languages was the Old Turkish, and that is the Bulgar and Chuvash that is in Europe. And the Old Bulgar and the Old Chuvash and the Old Hungarian, what they call, is actually the Turk, the oldest Turkish form of the today's Turkic languages. So it follows the periodization of the Turkish because it shifts from R to Z. What you can see. You can see this even in you can see this in Central Asia. You can even see this sometimes in East Asia, in Persia, and in Turkey. So this means somewhere there was a shift from R to Z, but where did it start? I think I once claimed that it might have started in Persia. So Persia is actually the melting pot of the Turkish, the old Turkish into modern Turkish. So Persia, I think, is not that old as Old Turkish. Old Turkish, the so-called Bulgar, Chuvash, Hungarian, the Uralic languages, some can be called Old Turkish. These are actually the Turkic languages from the Urals. Before they came towards the south and had their shift to Z in Iran, Persia, most probably, and then it came to Anatolia. You actually saw the slight changes in the vocabulary. Not in the vocabulary, sorry, in the letters, yes. But you can still work out which word changed how by comparing the syllables, by comparing the words. So it is vice versa. If you take the Turkish languages, the Z branch, of course, that is true. But you have to consider also the R branch, that is the oldest Turkish branch. Do the same with Old German, do the same with Old English. When you compare Old English, you don't distinguish it. When you compare Old German, you don't distinguish it. Or when you take the other languages, Old Greek or Old Italian or Latin, you don't distinguish it. They are all considered the roots of today's language. So why do you distinguish it in Turkish? I mean, you have to be just. So what you have to do is apply the same structure for Turkish as well. it is Old Turkish. The West branch, coming from the north, is more original, is older than the Z branch, coming towards Central Asia and coming towards East Asia. The language, right? And coming, of course, to Anatolia. Right. It occupies a prominent place in the paper. According to the author of History of Turkish Languages, can be divided into periods as follows: Altaic, Ancient Turkish, Early and Late. Old Turkish, Early and Late, Middle Turkish, Early and Late, New Turkish, and Modern Turkish. The period division is logical and congruent to comparison of Indo-European languages. It also closer division suggested by the Soviet scholar Baskakov, though it is different. It differs from it exactly at those points. The problem here is that the people distinguish between Chuvash, Bulgar. They take them as separate languages, and then they apply it to Turkish in East Asia, or in Persia, or in Central Asia, or in Anatolian Turkish. That's what they do. So there's the problem. In Prof, Ronald Tice's interpretation, Ancient Turkish stands for Honik in N.A. Bashkako and covers a span of 10 centuries. Ronald Tice's point of view is logical, but does not quite agree with the facts. The only data about this large period, of course it is Honik, of time can be found in the writings of Chinese historians. But European Honik, so that means the Bulgars, according to whom the Turks ranked third in regards to importance to the House of Huns, that is, sources considered generally reliable describe the Turks as a constituent part of the Huns and belonging to the Hunnic ethno-linguistic community, and not vice versa. As it has been established and already pointed out, the Huns formed the western branch of the Altaic ethno-linguistic community, which comprised of the following tribes arranged according to the order. Of course. Here lies the answer. Now, who said this? Very right. Let me have a look. So Ronatash is right. Ronatash described it and summarized it like this. I'm repeating it. As it has been established and already pointed out, the Huns formed the western branch of the Altaic ethno-linguistic community, which comprised of the following tribes. Now comes it, arranged according to the order of their importance: the Uyghurs, the Bulgars, Turks, Avars, etc. Now, actually, the Uyghurs, the Bulgars, the Avars are all Turks. And there is the problem. So it is defined here as if Turks were a different group of people, and the Avars and Bulgars and Uyghurs were a different group of people. So why is it then that the Uyghurs and the Turks, the Anatolian Turks, can understand each other about 90%, if it's not Turkish? So the Uyghurs are definitely Turks. They are Uyghur Turks. Only their branch is different. It's like Germans, but Swiss Germans and Austrian Germans. So it is the same logic. You have to understand that. Anyway, let me continue. Whoever understands this, understand it. Whoever doesn't understand it, just pass it on. Later on, part of the Huns fell into the boundaries on the growing Turkish Khanate of 551 and later on the second and third Khanate. Tradition and influence of Arab sources dating from after the 7th century have transferred the name of Turks to all peoples. The Arabs transformed it. I'm trying to solve the problem, but as long as the Western scholars come up with new problems, they will be lost in their own misery. If they don't accept the truth, if they don't accept the facts, and if they are not just, they will never come out of their problems. They will never try to solve it because they will always be in their own myths and their own fairy tales, while the jigsaw puzzle could be actually solved by changing the point of view. First, you must think like a Turk. That's the first rule. Second, you must know, in order to think like a Turk, you must learn the language. And maybe you should know the mentality a bit. So maybe you should have Turkish roots in order to understand the problem and solve the problem, of course. Otherwise, you cannot solve it. You will always swim in despair. Anyway, continue. Such means Central and Middle Asia. So the Arabs called the Turks in Central and Middle Asia, and even to those who had left these parts before the 6th and never been under the law of the Turkish Khanates. So thank you, Arabs. Such was the case with the Bulgar Huns, who, according to Chinese sources, had moved to the Volga region as early as the 2nd century. I think the history goes far beyond that. I mean, it's not only in the 2nd century BC or AD. I think it started with the Proto-Bulgarians, they say, Proto-Bulgarians. So it is definitely of more ancient form of, say, tens of thousands of years, I would say. Such was the case with the Bulgar Huns, who, according to Chinese sources, had moved to the Volga region as earlier. These Bulgar Huns, Bulgars in short, Bulgars. No, these Bulgar Huns, Bulgars in short, but never Turks, had never been included in the domains of the Turks, who started to develop the features characteristic of a people who and state organization only after the 4th century, labeling them Turks and calling the undoubtedly Hunnic period in the development Turkish is by all means incorrect. No, you cannot call it Turkish, but you have to call it Turk. It is a Turk period. Like you say German, you have to say it is a Turk period. If you say Turkish, generally it is considered Anatolian Turkish and modern Turkish, and the Turks living in Anatolia. But in order to solve the problem, you have to call it Turk, and the language is Turk. So Aronotas periodization of Chuvash follows that of Turkish languages. Though it has already been pointed out that Chuvash does not belong with them. No, it belongs to the Turkic family. The following periods have been formulated: ancient Bulgarian from the 1st century. So we understand now that ancient Bulgarian and old Bulgarian, early old Bulgarian, is the closest to today's Turkish. So you cannot distinguish them. You cannot separate Bulgarian from Turkish then. Late Old Bulgarian, Middle Bulgarian, blah, blah, blah, Late New Bulgarian, Modern Chuvash. The first periods of under-division of Chuvash linguistic theory coincide with the development of diasporas of special interest to us, the period termed Ancient Bulgarian, in fact, blah, blah, blah. Then the Proto-Bulgarians did not differ ethnically or linguistically from the rest of the people belonging to the western branch of the Huns. That means the western branch of the Turks. The period spanning from the 4th, 5th century to the end of the 7th century, when they settled in northeast Bulgaria, is termed by Ronatash Old Bulgarian, which is inconvenient since the language can be mixed up with Old Bulgarian proper. Instead, we suggest early Proto-Bulgarian and late Proto-Bulgarian for the period, when it was finally substituted by Slav Bulgarian as an official language. Yes, later it became Slav Bulgarian. Thus, the historic development of Bulgarian can be divided into the following periods: Altaic, Hunnic, early Proto-Bulgarian, late Proto-Bulgarian. And this is how they separated the stages. The early Bulgarian sources by Byzantine. Late Proto-Bulgarian has been documented in inscriptions dating back to the first Bulgarian state, in a canon of Old Bulgarian literature. These are all also names, expressions, and words which we find on runic Proto-Bulgarian monuments. Okay, now comes that the Bulgars, the Proto-Bulgars, I think they lived in Anatolia also. The thing they call Minoans, etc., I think they are the oldest Bulgarians. So the Minoans and the Cretans, etc., they were actually old Turkish. They were the Western Turks. That's why the Greeks, the old Greeks, fought them all the time. So Professor Ronatash has also explained the interpretation of various facts of his periodization. In his opinion, early Tokharic loanwords can be detected in ancient Turkish. Oh, when I said Tokharian is a kind of Turkish language, they criticized me. How can you say that Tokharian is an Indo-European language, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. No. Remember the suffix AR. The suffix in Turkish AR means man. So if it's AR, it is definitely Turkic or Turk. In his opinion, early Tokharic loanwords can be detected in ancient Turkish. That means the Tokhars, the first horse riders, were Turks. They were from the Urals. They came to Anatolia, and the ancient Minoans, or whatever you call them, they are actually these people, maybe the Tokharians, and they call them names and names and names. Actually, they are all Western Turks. Such as the word from the numeral 5. Okay. He has derived it from Tokharic pens. Pesh, besh. Okay. In Turkish, it is now besh. This fact is definitely new and interesting, but still is an isolated one. No, why should it be? I mean, the numbers were once together before it split into Indo-European and Ural-Altaic. Andras Ronatas has also compared Hungarian Haran, Turkish Kazan, but has missed Bulgarian Karanya. Now, Haran, Kazan. In Russia, We have a city called Kazan. It's a Turkish city. So I think the ancient Turks, they formed maybe this oldest city in Russia. Maybe it's one of the oldest cities founded by the old Bulgars, that is the Western Turks. But has Miss Bulgarian, Onogur Old Bulgarian, has already been interpreted by us, as well as Hungarian Tükör, Teker, which is closer to Old Bulgar Tikya, from Proto-Bulgarian Tukur. Now, I want to add here something. Kazan, as I said, is something made of metal, where you can wash some things and even wash, babies, etc., or wash yourself, children, in the oldest times, of course. And when you look at Turkish, tükür in Hungarian, when you say tükür in Turkish, it means to spit. You spit on the ground, for example, tükür. In Chubash, when you say teker, it means in Turkish wheel. So whatever vowel you put into it, it makes a meaning. So this is the speciality of Turkish. The observations on the language of the Danube Bulgars are of considerable interest to us. Professor Vonatas is the first among Hungarian scholars to have expressed the opinion that the inscription on the Nagistem Miklos gold treasure is Proto-Bulgarian and not Pechenik, as suggested by Nemet. Whatever this makes, I mean, if you say Proto-Bulgarian, it is more Turkic than Pechenik. If you claim it is Proto-Bulgarian, it comes closer to Old Turkic. So whatever you say, you are swallowed in your own words. The Proto-Bulgarian inventory inscription from Preslav is also mentioned, but only the words küpe and, oh God, something have been used. Okay, küpe means earring in Turkish. And for every word, there is a meaning. Is there some word that you can show me that has not been unexplained until now? No, because it's Old Turkish. The author seems to support the old interpretation of içirgü, which is traditionally connected with içerki. The author of these lines has twice pointed out that this treatment is erroneous because the name and title consist of two parts. Üç, inner, iç. Iç means inner, yes. İçerki can mean the inner. And ergü, tent camp. And the whole means the boil of an inner camp. Okay. It may also mean, we have içerisinde, içeriki in Turkish, which means the inner. Head of the guard of the Khan's camp, Andras Ronatas does not discuss the rest of the words in the inscription, and they are more than 10 because of their previous interpretations given by Venedikov, Deni, and Beshevliev, which are not without problems. For Altheim Simonov's interpretations do not seem to be familiar to the author. The above-mentioned inscription contains authentic names of Proto-Bulgarian armament items: shield, helmet, chainmail, leather, shield, padded chainmail, leather, knickers. More? Now I understand why there is Bulgaria so close to Turkey, because Turkey, before it became Z Turkish, was actually R Turkish, ruled by old Turks. That means the old Bulgars and the Turks were together before they split. And everything about the ancient Minoans, blah, blah, blah, and all the Orthodox stuff and so on and so on, it was actually Turks before they became Muslims. Has been given up to the list of Bulgarian rulers, but again, only 2 words have been discussed. They have been interpreted in a new way. Okay, now comes the development suggested as Tabilyan, Tavlan, Davlan, Dawlan, Dwalan. A change is possible. What had taken place was rather metastasis under the irregularity of rule for Old Bulgarian. E.g., Davshan. It means rabbit. Avashan. Dvashani. And shortening the syllable because of the dissimilation containing sh, which is more probable, especially in a later period when the meaning was obliterated and brought closer to Slavic. The author shares Bazin's opinion concerning the second word. Vereni is not derived from Buri-eni, but from Orven dragon, which in Proto-Bulgarian gave Veren. This new interpretation is very interesting since it is better correlated to the other names, of years in the list. Professor Ronatash has expounded and supported by fact the idea suggested by Emil Böv that the Bulgarian Shile is of Proto-Bulgarian origin, Sulle. He has compared it to Hungarian Sullo, derived from Proto-Hungarian Silek. But what does it mean? If you help me with this, I can give you the meaning. Chilek. We have chilek, which means strawberry. Oh, could be. The author, however, takes Kep and Beljek for Slavic Bulgarian and not Proto-Bulgarian loanwords and Hungarian. Such proposition is definitely possible but in direct influence of Proto-Bulgarian seems more convincing. The interpretations given to some words and names are objectable too, e.g. the Altaic Hunnic Karin, which has resulted in Hiram and Chuvash. In Proto-Bulgarian, initial K was preserved, and the modern word of Korem from Old Bulgarian, Korem, undoubtedly a Proto-Bulgarianism. This is very important for defining loanwords in Hungarian as Bulgar, Hunnic, and not Chuvash. The antonym Barzal has acquired this form because of its Arabic rendering. The Byzantine form is closer to its original sounding, which can be explained if it's divided into bars. Barsa, where bars is Barzilian people. We have Pars, which means Arslan, I think, and Oroslan is, or Uraslan, no, Oroslan, or Araslan, no, I think it's Oroslan, which is in Hungarian and means lion. So lion, Arslan in Turkish, Oroslan, and I think Persia and Paris is also a derivation of Arslan because it took a prefix or a letter. The Barsils were part of the Bulgars. So if the Barsils, the Pars, Arslan, they were part of the Bulgars. So the Bulgars, vay be. I found it. I think Anatolia, ancient Anatolia, was more home to the ancient Bulgars rather than to the Greeks or the Arabs or the Armenians, as they claim. So the ancient Turks have been so much assimilated that we don't even know our own roots anymore. And we think, or they make us believe that we came from the East. But in fact, we were always here. Why is there Bulgaria? Why is there a country like Bulgaria? It didn't pop up out of nowhere. If there were the Bulgar people, they must have had a broader area of land, which was ancient Anatolia, together with Persia. And it was once connected, but there were, of course, differences. And from time to time, Bulgaria was attacked both from Persia and from the Greeks, and sometimes from the Egyptians. But actually, it was always the same people who lived on these lands with different beliefs, but they just lived among Persians, they lived among Greeks, they lived among Armenians, they lived among Egyptians. So they became Mediterranean people. That means they became us. We are not that different. We just came in different times, but we were always the same people. Professor Aron's paper is of great interest and should be carefully studied by Bulgarian scholars. It has rich and interesting ideas and suggestions important both for linguistics and history. The author of the next paper, Salontai Dimitri von Cheboksary. Cheboksary is a Turkish word, an old Turkish word. I think it's a Chuvash city. Her problem is the etymology of the Chuvash word Homsha, priest, magician, and its correspondence in languages related to Chuvash. The Proto-Bulgarian word for priest is kolovor, known from the native inscriptions and Byzantine sources. A word similar to pronunciation is different Bulgarian kind of chainmail. The rest of the papers in the anthology treat literary, cultural, and historical problems. Vasai's paper, The Ugria Problem, deserves special notice. With good reason, the author opposes to the derivation of the antonym Ugri from the name of Bulgar Hunnic tribe, Onoguri. He connects it with the etonym Uyghur. Could be possible, right? Could be possible. That's what I claimed once. Onogur is the same as Uyghur. Yeah. And uses historical data setting the time of their settlement to the west of the Ural Mountains. Setting during the 19th and 20th centuries. The volume is applied with an index and books. Not all the abbreviations. I think it has finished. Oh. Well, okay. So now comes my result. My summary. I actually made my summary already. My thoughts that I gave about the Bulgars, the old Bulgars, that they were Turks. And I think today's Bulgaria was once a wider area which was a mixture of today's Turks, today's Bulgars, a mixture of Etruscans, what they call Etruscans, and also Hungarians, Chuvash. So I can say that once upon a time on these lands that the Z branch Turks live now was a Western branch Turkic group of civilization living in Anatolia, together with the Greeks, the Persians. They were sharing a vast culture, but the dominance was mainly among the Persians and the Greeks. The Greeks were a seafarer people, and the Persians were mainly dominant in the region. So the Bulgars were maybe more pastoralist group who were mainly involved with other things than ruling, not like before, but they had a vast effect on the culture, and all the civilization actually is an old Turk civilization. That's why Persia, Greece, and even the Slavic Bulgars themselves, they always compete with the Turks because they never took their place because they knew that they were more ancient. They had more dominance in the culture, and they had learned from that culture. So if you consider the R branch, you see that the R branch of the Turkish family, the language served to Hungarian, to Persian, even Greek, to the Balkans themselves, to Egypt, Arabic, and to German. Yes, thank you very much for listening. Have a good night. Well, how am I supposed to close this now? Okay.